Live from the Export Beer Garden studios, you're listening to the BYC, and we thought we'd do something a little bit different at the start there, fellas. We're going to kick off with some correspondence from our great mate in Whitby, fish and chips from Whitby, old Tony Blaine. What do we feel?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, you think so?
Happy with that.
Because I think he sums it up very, very nicely indeed. And he says, great start for the Mighty Caps so far in Cup 23, and there's some promising signs. Devon Conway has started as we all want him to, and Ravindra is looking all class in his new spot atop the order. Mitchell Santner will be buoyed by a haul of 5 against Holland, while Matt Henry is straight into his metronomic best work. Cricket is a confidence-driven game, and so far most of the Caps have had a helping of success to feed that requirement. The opening win against England was comprehensive, and the expected shutout against Holland was done without fuss. The lads just need to keep performing individually and collectively as the matches roll on, consolidating the momentum of the early carnival atmosphere stages of the tournament, building the confidence they can carry you through the high-tariff matches later on. Let's hope the Kiwis keep on trucking. Go the Mighty Caps, Blaney. And you'd have to agree with him, Dylan Cleaver. A good, solid, promising start by the Black Caps, particularly when you think about the fact that there's some very key players coming back from injury very shortly.
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about some of those selection conundrums later, but we haven't seen Tim Southey yet. We've seen James Neesham once. We might not see a hell of a lot more of him.
No.
Lockie Ferguson once. We haven't seen Ish Sodhi yet. So, yeah, obviously we haven't seen the one and only, the great Kanye Williamson. So there's a lot to feel good at this early stage of the campaign about how the Black Caps are tracking.
Yeah, very much so. And I don't know what it is, Paul. Our boys, when it comes to tournament cricket, really seem to turn it on. You know, we seem cohesive. We seem to know what our game plan is. We're confident. And every time these World Cups roll around, we're there or thereabouts.
We absolutely are. You couldn't ask for anything more than 2 comprehensive victories, 2 from 2. One against probably the tournament's second favourite, sort of potential finalist, just an absolute drubbing of England, and then just a really slick professional performance against the Netherlands. And Jace, this is the thing, right? We keep doing this, and everybody seems to keep on being surprised, including us, that we're doing well at a cricket tournament. That we're a good team. We are a bloody good team, very flexible, very adaptable. We've obviously got our best 11 about to come back onto the park. These guys have played a hell of a lot of cricket together for the last 4 years. 9 of them have been there before. It's all got to help.
Yeah.
Can I run something past you?
Yeah,
Jason?
do.
Can I ask the umpire something?
Yes.
Andrew Alderson, the great Andrew Alderson, and I did a short podcast to wrap up the New Zealand game with the Netherlands. We didn't broach the stumping.
Yes.
Where Tom Latham caught the ball and appeared to stump the Dutch batter by a long way off the bowling error in Ravindra, which sent Ian Smith into apoplexy in the
yes, very much so.
In the booth.
Well, that's not hard though at the moment.
No,
it seems, Dylan. He's quite cranky these days,
isn't he? We'll get to that. But yeah, he says, "Well, I've got to say, as a former wicketkeeper, that's the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. That is just crazy. When the ball went into the gloves, they were clearly behind the stumps. They might have been initially in front. That's important, that bit." But when the ball went into the gloves, clearly behind the stumps. Look at the gloves there. Are you telling me it's a no ball? Well, when I look in the paper tomorrow, we'll say, but not for mine. This is becoming like rugby union. The officials just can't stay out of it. As a former official of some note, what do you say?
Look, forgive my French here. I thought it was just bullshit. And I think that those sort of decisions, yes, technically by the law, his gloves did go in front of the stumps. And so, therefore, it's a no ball. But, when you're looking at that sort of stuff and you're making those sort of calls, that for me was a rubbish decision. And I think if we start getting into these stupid nitpicking sort of decisions, it's going to ruin the game. I mean, who even looks at, I wouldn't have even looked at that. Mind you, I wouldn't have had replays and stuff like that. He's out, just move on. I mean, like, what was it, a centimetre in front of the stumps? If that. And you're ruling on that? Nah, come on.
If Brad Haddon had done it, though?
Oh, definitely. Call a no ball, and that's it. I mean, if it was an Aussie that did it, call a no ball.
I think this is, I agree with you in principle, I guess, Jace, but I think the rule was applied correctly. The umpire didn't make a mistake. It's a shitty rule. It seems like a really dumb rule, particularly when it's such a comprehensive stumping as it was in this Engelbrecht versus Latham situation. Technically correct. And I'm surprised Ian Smith doesn't know the rule, but I guess he maybe he does, and he's really making the point, like, get the officials out of the way on some of this stuff. Stop checking everything. And I've got to agree with them on that. Like, I love a bit more subjectivity and a bit more controversy that we have to deal with.
Can I be a little bit of a devil's advocate here?
Yes.
You have a fast bowler that comes steaming in. Let's say Pete Waka Yunus comes steaming in. He bowls the ball to, let's say, Rod Latham. It's an in-swinging Yorker. It cleans all three stumps out. They're splayed all over Seddon Park, Hamilton, we'll say.
Sounds highly likely to me.
Yeah. They go on the replay, and his boot has just not quite, like we're talking a millimetre here, that it hasn't got back behind the line. Do we sit there and go, get the officials out of it? Or do we go, no ball?
I take your point, and it's a fair point. And people do that, don't they, with regards to no ball? Sometimes they go, oh, God, jeez. But I just think in this scenario, if he had have, taken the ball just slightly in front of the stumps and done it, yeah, fair cop. But the ball was clearly taken behind the stumps. It just seemed a very obvious out to me. If you're going to start nitpicking like that, then I think it's just going to irritate the living bejesus out of the fans.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, is what DRS has done to a certain extent, hasn't it? It's tried to give exactitude to a game where there's got to be some flaws and chances. And we saw that with the Mitchell Starc catch in the Ashes as well, didn't we? Where, like, 10 years ago, that's just a catch. Yeah. The batsman walks off, but now they look at it and his hand did actually roll the ball over and the ball did touch the turf. So I don't know. We either embrace video technology and everything it brings and try to get every single decision absolutely perfect, or what do? Do we turn the clock back? I don't think they can now.
Well, no, you can't do that.
And I think the spirit of and I know the spirit of cricket or whatever, but the spirit of that law is about the wicketkeeper getting an advantage and getting in the way of the batsman, I think. And clearly Latham didn't do that. There was, if you applied any element of common sense over the decision, it would be given out. And I think that's where it sort of falls down, as you're trying to take this fully scientific, go all full mechanical engineering on it, and you just can't do it. Hey, before we change subjects though, Tony Blaine, we just need to give him a shout out. We found that scorecard from a couple of weeks ago.
Yes, indeed.
Now, Tony Blaine, his final game, playing for Yorkshire CCC, the Veterans Ridings second 11, scored up against Gloucestershire Cricket Foundation, and he scored 97 not out opening the batting. So shout out to T-Bone.
Yeah, good stuff. Hey, just touching on that Netherlands game, it was a potential banana skin there for us. They're a tricky side. You'd expect us to win, but, you can have upsets at a World Cup. But just a really good, solid, all-round performance from New Zealand. The pitch a little tricky to start off with, Dylan. We went through that, posted a good score, and it was just a professional display, I thought.
It was a professional display. I thought they batted really well in conditions that weren't optimal.
Yes.
And also, I think there's lessons to take out of that, and that we think that you can backload all the innings. And we saw it to a certain extent with England, Bangladesh last night, where you think if you got wickets intact, it's easy for the big hitters to come in late in the innings and just slog from ball one. It's actually not.
Yeah.
I think there's a real emphasis on the guys that get in to stay in, which is exactly what Rich and Ravindra and Conway did against England, and it's exactly what the English didn't do against New Zealand.
Yeah.
You put pressure on the next guy coming in, and if the wicket's a little tacky, as it tends to be, under sunlight, then it's not as easy to just hit from ball one.
Yeah, and now listen, fellas, I missed the last BYC podcast. I was away. I just have to say, Paul Ford, Ravindra, that magnificent 100. Where in bloody God's name did that come from? Never, ever. I know he's a quality player. I know he has potential. That was some innings, mate.
Oh, unbelievable. And Dylan and I talked about it felt like the innings that had been preparing for his whole life.
Yes.
His dad has been giving him, throwdowns. He's been going to India training, and then he goes back to India, opening game of the World Cup. He's lucky to be in the squad. He's lucky to be potentially in the match day 12. He's lucky to be batting number 3. All of these decisions could have been somebody else. And then he just gets out there and pulls off one of the most extraordinary batting innings. And you'd say sort of under pressure now. I mean, under pressure in terms of it being an important game, but probably under kind of like no pressure whatsoever, really. Like, given an opportunity, just took it with both hands, and absolutely magnificent. And of course, typically humble after the end of the game. When they talked to him about it, he mainly acknowledged Devon Conway and how helpful he'd been.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've waxed lyrical about Conway many, many times. He's a quality act now, and massively established as one of the best batsmen in the world, in world cricket, you'd have to say. So the bangers next. Tricky little opposition, and you'd have to say conditions that would suit them, Dylan. Do we need another spinner? Santner, in good form at the moment. Pfeiffer, of course, a wily bowler. Do we need more spinners in our ranks for this game?
Possibly a horses for courses one. This game's in Chennai.
Yes.
And we saw from the other night when Australia played India there that it is a raging turner.
Yes.
Or it has the potential to be a raging turner there. Bangladesh are going to go in with a spin-heavy attack with the Mahidi Hassans and Shakib Al Hassan. I would say that if Ish Sodhi is going to play at this World Cup, it will be this match.
Yeah.
I do think you go in with one extra. I know Rachin Ravindra's done okay, and of course you got Glenn Phillips, who has worked hard on his bowling.
Yeah, he's improved. I'll give him that. He's actually a bit more of a threat now.
Oh, he bowled better against England, I thought, than Rachin did, but they obviously like Rachin's left arm, and I guess he's a more natural bowler. Yeah, I think they give Sodhi a go in this one, and perhaps pay just 2 specialist seamers.
Being who?
Henry and Bolt.
Yeah. Because I would think, Paul Ford, having a look at it, you do a straight swap for Ferguson. He's bowling, 140 at the moment. Just doesn't seem to be quite at his best.
Yep, and, unavailable versus England, and then none for 32 against the Netherlands off 8 overs. That's hardly kind of pick me kind of a recent CV from Lockie Ferguson. Chapman, I think, is the expendable one. Didn't bat and didn't bowl against England. Not his fault, of course, and then only scored 5 against the Netherlands. So not, again, if you're going to put Ravindra versus Chapman, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't go with the guy that's done it twice in a row. So, yeah, for mine, Williamson plays, Sodhi plays, and I agree. Chapman misses out, Ferguson misses out, Neesham stays on the pine, and so does Tim Southey. That's sort of how I see it. I think it does put pressure on Ravindra and Glenn Phillips bowling, no question about that. And as Dylan mentioned, Bangladesh in Chennai, they are going to be tricky. They will be wanting to put a much better performance on the board than after their annihilation against England. I did see some of the post-match comments, and I thought, oh yeah, they're really taking kind of lessons from PR 101. Taskin Ahmed said, sometimes we'll concede runs, but we just have to bowl more good balls. We will do well if we can bowl out oppositions for low totals. And their coach said the plan was not to bowl outside the stumps. The plan was to bowl at the stumps. So, I mean, this is high-level analysis as they go to the MA Chidambaram Stadium, Jadeja headquarters, of course.
Yeah, well, that's and you mentioned it there, Paul. Old Kane Williamson coming back into the lineup. How do we configure that, Dylan?
I leave Young and Conway as the openers.
Yes.
I have Williamson at 3. I actually would have Rachin at 4 and shuffle everyone back 1. So Mitchell, well, I'll qualify that. So Mitchell comes in at 5, Phillips 6. But you've got flexibility there. You've got a nice mix of left-handers, right-handers. Sorry, I missed out Tom Latham as well. You've got a nice mix of right and left-handers there. I would definitely have that top 3 set in stone, depending on where they are at the innings and whether you want a right and left combination. I'd be prepared to mix and match Ravindra, Latham, Phillips, Mitchell, depending on what the stage of the match is. But those top 3 set in stone. Yeah,
nice little knock too from Young in that last game too, Paul Ford. Yep. And I think actually one of the things we see with this New Zealand side which I think bodes well for them. It might annoy us occasionally, but they're so consistent, generally speaking, with their selections. And I think you see that. They take a long-term kind of perspective on players, and that comes to fruition in tournaments like this.
Yep, I agree. And, your comments about Will Young, I think, are very fair. And it wasn't just the fact that he, scored some runs, but showed good intent. Plus, that patience at just that little period at the top of the innings as well. Just not prepared to take on massive amounts of risk. Because, as Dylan said earlier, building those partnerships and building around Young or building around Conway or building around Williamson or Ravindra is going to be the key to us getting a good score. It was interesting seeing Glenn Maxwell's comments after they got stitched up at Chennai by the Indians, and he said that the Australians got tangled up thinking that they had to score 250, whereas he thought that 230 would probably be okay, and it was a pitch where you had to be really, really patient with your defence and then whack the living Christ out of the loose deliveries because the pitch was so inconsistent. It was hard to play good strokes for a lot of the innings.
Yeah, well, let's have a little look around the grounds. As previously mentioned, Pakistan overcoming Sri Lanka.
Cracking game.
Yeah.
Great game of cricket.
Was good.
Yeah.
Rizwan and Shafiq, holy moly, they were unbelievable. And Rizwan had a pulled right calf for most of that innings.
Wow.
Which is quite helpful for us as well, potentially later in the tournament.
Did the Gordon Greenwich. If he's limping, you're in danger.
Yeah. Do you see Pakistan Final Four?
Well, I didn't
initially. You'd have
initially.
to, wouldn't you?
I didn't initially because, this is going to be the third podcast in a row I use this hoary old cliche. They are so mercurial. I always figure you're going to have a low, and you probably can only afford to lose 3 matches in these round robins. But now, after watching just the ease in which they chased that big total, Sri Lanka scored 344, and they were buoyed by another phenomenal innings from Kusal Mendis, who they're leaning very heavily on.
122 off 77 balls.
Oh, and it was magnificent to watch too. I was watching it through very bleary eyes, as you can probably tell now, but jeepers, he was going for it. So, I still don't really rate Pakistan's spin options, which I think may cost them in games.
Sure.
But yeah, they can play.
Who are your top 4, by the way?
Well, jeepers, this is calling on our memory pool.
Yeah, I know, because I saw that you brought that up in the podcast. I'm going through it. It's tough, man.
India, definite.
Yes.
England, almost definite, although we obviously...
New Zealand?
I had New Zealand in there. And
Aussie.
I had Pakistan.
Oh, you had Pakistan, yes.
I was tossing up between Australia, South Africa, Pakistan. I think I went for Australia.
Yeah. England, Paul Ford, giving the Bangladeshis an absolute pantsing.
Yes, absolute pantsing. And I guess Milan was the rock, and then blazing away. That's 5th ton for England, 140 off. I think it was about 106, 107 balls, something like that. Yeah, 364 for 9. And they actually should have got more. They should have got 420 the way that they were thundering along. And then Reece Topley with the bowling looked very good. So I think we might have dodged a bullet by not having that left armour in that first game. He got 4 for 43. And, yeah, as you say, they just absolutely crushed. And they did it again without Ben Stokes, who was sitting there looking like a sort of male model from Ibiza with his terrible sunglasses and sweating up a storm.
And his hair plugs.
Yeah.
Hair plugs, yeah.
Nice.
Very resilient.
So that ground's going to be an issue, though. New Zealand are due to play India up there in Dharamsala. It's absolutely fantastic setting, beautiful. But
everything except cricket.
The outfield is an absolute shocker, and it's just getting worse too. So, they may have to make a call there whether they can keep playing up there.
Fellas, what's going on with the crowds?
In terms of them not turning up?
Yes.
I think the whole
very hard to get a ticket, very hard to know the schedule, and I think Indian fans only really care about watching India play. Yeah, because they've got the IPL. They see all these other guys play in their own tournament.
Yeah, because it's disappointing, isn't it? Yeah. Some of these games, it's just like, God, there's bloody there's 3,000 people there in a stadium that seats 1 billion.
Yeah, the ticketing's been a shambles apparently, and it has been. Well, the ICC let the tournament organisers get away with not having a schedule for so long, and that's prevented a huge Barmy Army presence, probably. You'd expect them to have thousands over there. You'd expect Australia to have a really big touring party. There's hardly any out there. You'd expect a lot of Pakistanis. They can't even get visas. So, yeah, it's been a little bit of a shambles. And as Paul mentioned, they're really expensive, and these guys can go and watch the IPL.
Yeah.
3 months every year.
Fair point. Well, let's hope it picks up as the tournament goes along and, add a bit of atmosphere. We sort of touched on this earlier, Paul Ford. Is IDS Smith turning into a cranky old cloud shouter?
It's quite a leading question, isn't it? I mean, his first piece of cloud shouting that I recall was around the Sky Sport commentary situation, where he found that he seemed a little bit pissed off that they were tending towards Māori, Pacific, and females. God forbid, in terms of the commentary team. And that was the way of the world.
The way of the world.
Was what he said. Look, I think Dylan's probably got the details on this, but I think it was to do with Dirk Nannes saying that the Netherlands didn't really have the guts to go out and set a total, whereas, and Dylan, you can absolutely give us the details. I actually think Ian Smith's point was a shithouse point, because I think the Netherlands showed more fight, more spirit, and more determination to try and beat New Zealand than England did in the opening game. So, I'm not sure.
I've just got to give a bit of background to this question too, because on the BYC behind-the-scenes app that we have there on what is it?
WhatsApp.
Oh, WhatsApp. Dylan Cleaver just going off his head regarding Smithy. He'll restrain himself in this situation, I'm sure. But
read some of that out, Jason?
He was going batshit crazy. And like, Paul and I were like, whoa. Hey,
you can't say that.
Come on, mate.
Yeah, I'll give you the background to it. Okay, so Ian Smith's making the reasonable question. He's posing the reasonable question here about why do these minnow teams not win the toss and bat first and set totals? And he thinks it'd be more advantageous for them to do so. Dirk Nannes, the World Cup mogul skier, saxophonist and black belt martial artist, was alongside him. He's also played for the Netherlands and Australia. He has got some pedigree. He just explained in a really reasonable tone why. And it's got nothing to do with them being scared of losing and of setting totals. It is because all the information they've basically got is that the pitches are easier to bat on in India at night. And Smithy just dismissed him. It was kind of brutal. It was like this. I mean, obviously you can't see the facial expressions, but it was a pithy one-liner along the lines of, if you say so. And I kind of thought that's a massive disrespect. You've put a point out there. The guy's really reasonably argued it. You can agree or disagree with that, all you like. But the old, if you say so, that kind of felt like the silverback, really. Like this is
Ian Smith just wanted
the silverback.
What Ian Smith just wanted, what we all wanted, which was the Netherlands to go in, get rolled for 38, New Zealand whack the winning runs, sort their net run rate out, and we go to bed before sort of 1 a.m. and he goes to the pub and eats 7 burgers and has 3 bottles of red wine. I think that's sort of where that was coming from.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he definitely does have the old man cranky vibe going on, doesn't he? The impatience and so forth.
I had the vibes of, this is my booth. Your job is to sit beside me and agree with everything I say.
Yeah. Hey, now let's look at the White Ferns. Has there been a more boring tour in the history of mankind? Methinks not. First T20.
You run us through the results, Jason.
Match abandoned without a ball bowled.
Mm-hmm.
Second T20. New Zealand 1 for 9 after 20 overs. No result.
Mm-hmm.
Third T20. Match abandoned without a ball bowled. That is shithouse. Let's be honest.
It's good if you want to. It's a good series if you want to watch the Cricket World Cup. I did have a quick look, and I have got a nomination for, maybe not the most boring, but the Unitech Cup in 2006 was Sri Lanka, India, and South Africa. There was a bomb threat, so South Africa pulled out. Then it rained. They had reserve days. It rained for all of the reserve days, so there was an entire series that was reduced, gone to rain delays. No cricket got played in the entire series.
Wow.
That's my nomination.
Was that in Sri Lanka? Was it a monsoon season tour?
Yes, that is absolutely correct.
Yeah. So I looked up things to do in East London. All these games have been in East London. And I went to like TripAdvisor and Expedia. And that the only thing you can do in East London is go to the beach. Nice beaches, apparently. But clearly, if these games are abandoned, it's not beach weather, is it?
It's shithouse weather. Yeah. Not good.
Oh, there's a cenotaph you can go and visit as well, but that's an hour.
I've got the weather forecast for East London up on my screen. It's rain, 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 rain and sun, rain and sun. There you go.
Now, I believe, fellas, there was a world record for the fastest 50 over ton pull forward.
Yeah, this is in Australian domestic cricket. A young fella by the name of Jake Fraser McGurk walloped a century in a List A game, 29 balls against Tasmania. And even better, it was in a losing effort. Poor 21-year-old kid. I mean, he's broken a record. He's doing all the media and his team lost the game. Probably doesn't actually care, let's be honest. Went from 50 to 100 in 11 balls. And I guess most importantly, knocked A.B. de Villiers off the top of the pops, who scored a 31-ball ton against the West Indies in 2015. And Corey Anderson slips down from silver to bronze, his 36-ball ton against the West Indies as well in 2014 in Queenstown, I think that was.
Yeah, it was Queenstown.
Got a bat named after him.
I would like to see a scorecard. 29 balls.
I've seen it,
That's
actually.
smacking the crap out of it.
I've seen like an Instagram reel or something, and there's some pretty ugly shots in there, and it's a really tiny ground.
Cleaver.
So I wouldn't be getting too excited about this one.
I mean, are you kidding me? This guy gets a 29-ball ton, and Cleaver's like, yes, well, some of the shots in there were to textbook.
quite a small ground.
Yeah, it was,
No, it's average. Bloody average.
I wouldn't teach the kids that's for sure. Hey,
Worst century I've ever seen.
right now it's time for Paul Ford's News or Ruse.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the Oi Hoi Trophy is still on the North Shore, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is.
I thought we drew the last one.
Nah,
Yeah, so it was retained like the Ranfurly Shield.
you got that.
Dylan Cleaver's been doing cocaine off it and snapped it in half, I think, but hopefully he's put it back together.
It's still remarkable. I haven't got one wrong this year. It's incredible.
Oh my Lord! I never realised there was such an ego behind this sort of humble exterior. I mean, what the bloody hell's going on?
What humble exterior.
You know what you reminded me of there? You reminded me of my dad. He does that sort of stuff.
The people of the South Island don't describe Dylan Cleaver as humble. Anyway,
No, true.
Well, certainly the below Nelson anyway.
Did you get on with your
outside
dad?
Well, occasionally.
He was a good man, I hear.
He was very fond of singing musical numbers.
Oh, no. Show tunes.
Show tunes with his leg up on the kitchen chair. Old
okay, good.
Man
We need to get
River, that old man river. But anyway, I digress. Paul
All right,
Ford's
Waldorf
News
and
or
Stadler.
Ruse.
Here we go. A presenter covering the Cricket World Cup in India has left the country after a backlash over alleged derogatory posts on social media. Pakistani sports journalist and commentator Zainab Abbas was part of the ICC's digital team covering the event and logged out on Monday amid claims from media organisations that she was forced to go. An ICC spokesperson told the BBC she'd left for personal reasons. She's made no public statement on her departure. In 2011, she became the first female sports reporter and commentator to cover the Cricket World Cup for Pakistan. The complaints came from a lawyer in Delhi over alleged old tweets claiming derogatory and provocative posts that mocked India, mocked the Hindu religion, and made unfortunate comments about Kashmir's right to self-determination. The alleged posts are several years old, but are no longer available on the social media platform. Number two, after 128-year wait, cricket is set to return to the Olympics. The organisers of the Los Angeles 2028 Olympics will recommend cricket for inclusion at the Games. The sport's only appearance at the Olympics took place at the 1900 Paris Games, when Great Britain and a very, very slightly mixed side comprising of 90% players from Great Britain and 10% from France then weirdly played for silver and bronze, not for gold. In a proposal to the IOC, the ICC has recommended a 6-team T20 event for both men and women. Other sports potentially set to be added include flag football, whatever the hell that is, baseball, softball, lacrosse, and squash. But no breakdancing this time around. It's been axed. And number three, buckets of ignominy for the England cricket team as they've been forced to take the field in the World Cup with varying uniforms, with an unbiased Australian media outlet saying the defending champions were made to look silly in front of millions at the tournament. The manufacturing blunder saw them take the field in varying shirts. Photos of the players during their opening two games appear to show different fonts on the front of their shirt. 15 of the 15 squad members, 7 have a small font, 8 have a larger one, and the logo was on different sides and back to front on some of the logos. There was a printing issue on one batch of shirts by a third party, which we are working to resolve, said a robotic statement from the ECB. They hope to have the issue resolved by the time they play Afghanistan. So there we go, boys. Pakistan, the Olympics, or the Poms?
Well, we're both going for the same one. So,
The Olympics?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
second.
just who gets closer to the actual reason.
I don't think they played Olympics 128 cricket at the Olympics 128 years ago.
Well, it's not 100. Actually, Paul did mention 128 years ago, and it was 1900, so that'd be 124 years ago. But I think he's referring to when it's next going
Which
to
is
be.
the Los Angeles Olympics
Yeah.
in 2028.
Yeah,
Good maths, Jace. From you.
I'm going to say that it is who they played was wrong in the final, or in the gold and bronze match.
Nah, I'm taking the Oi Hoi Trophy down to Wellington with me because Abbas was the first female sports reporter and commentator to cover the Cricket World Cup, not in 2011, but much more recently, only in 2019.
I
Was she
heard 2011 and immediately went, I bet it's not 2011.
No, I didn't even think of that. Well,
There you go.
All good things have got to come to an end.
Yeah, true.
Oh, right. The
True.
humility. The humility.
Hey, it's time for Paul Ford's Cricket Violence Corner!
Paul Ford's Cricket Violence Corner.
The fat Englishman running onto the field YouTube channel promoting pest with a terrible bowling technique and who used to be funny, Daniel Jarvo Jarvis, has been banned from attending matches at the World Cup after yet another punishing pitch invading incident during the India versus Australia match this week. The incident took place moments after the Indian players entered the field. Jarvo caught everyone by surprise as he literally just walked down and onto the field in a black jacket and onto the field of play, pulled the jacket off, was wearing an Indian jersey, still wearing a white hat, wandered on, high-fived Mohammad Siraj, approached KL Rahul in the wicket-keeping gloves, and then Virat Kohli wandered over and gave him a massive spray as security told him to piss off. They grasped the rotund, sweaty invader and escorted him outside. It is the 4th time he has managed to breach security in a cricket match involving India. FYI, his YouTube channel, 184,000 subscribers. So somebody out there loves it. It ain't me.
Yeah, man. I imagine that would really annoy you, that guy, Jarvo. I bet I can see Dylan Cleaver in his lounge just mouthing off at him.
Oh, mate, you want to believe it. He's a guy that needs friends who say, hey, it was funny the first time.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I see your point. Hey, now listen, your correspondence, and I can tell you what, it's been pouring in it, hasn't it, fellas? And we love hearing from you. What do we want to, because there's so much here, what do we want to focus on today?
Well, sure, you race through the first one, Jason. I'll race through the second one. They're both short, and we'll leave the longer one in defence of Jimmy Neesham till next week.
Yeah, which is a very good one, by the way. Thank you from England, David O'Connell. Hi, guys. Thank you for the great podcast. I particularly loved you waxing lyrical on the Black Caps' mighty thrashing of the Poms in the World Cup. As an expat Kiwi in England, I've been loving life after that result. Also, will Dylan's new book be available in the UK at all? Sounds an interesting read. Anyway, keep up the great work, and here's to more brilliant Black Caps results. All the best, Dave in Newcastle upon Tyne.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dave. I am not sure about its availability in the UK, but I'm sure we can sort something out for you. I'll keep that in mind, okay? Why don't you send Paul Ford in your details, and I'll see if I can get a book out to you.
Yeah, flick us your email. Flick us it through, Dave, byc@beigebrigade.co.nz. Obviously, you know it, having emailed us. And speaking of humility earlier, I do know that when you're an a Kiwi in England, and England do really well at cricket, they're massive wounders. So I have a lot of empathy for his situation, which is us beating the Poms and then trying to find some decent coverage of that win. So good on you, Dave.
This one's from Richard Swan. He says, gents, while listening to the show and the full-on nature of the tournament was mentioned, going from round robin to semis to final, it made me think, how good is it that there is no punishing third v fourth play? Nothing is more lame than this fixture, especially in the Rugby World Cup, but also soccer. Would you know whether there has been this fixture and why the ICC has neglected this possible cash cow? Jeepers, I don't think I can ever recall a third versus fourth.
No, I can't either. I tell you what, though, I totally agree, but I would quite like there to be a sort of a shakedown right at the end so that everyone knows their actual positions. Maybe third versus fourth. If you played the semis, you're third equal. But, I think it would be quite cool to have the bottom two teams and then the next two and the next two and the next two. And maybe there's something on the line. But, I'm not aware of there being a third, fourth playoff.
I kind of agree with that, though, because, you think of the Rugby World Cup, there's nothing more depressing and punishing than the third and fourth playoff.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially if the All Blacks are in the third and fourth playoff. I mean, it really makes me want to be sick in my own mouth.
Remember when Tane Randall got absolute grief for saying, just telling the truth and saying, oh, no, we don't really want to be playing this game.
Yeah. Yeah, well, who would?
The other thing at the bottom of Richard's note is a PS, and it says, I haven't heard whether Josh B from Karori has made it over to the Cricket World Cup tournament. I shit you not. I've literally just looked out the window and Josh B is collecting his rubbish bin from out the front of my house.
So probably
he hasn't made it to India yet, but I'll check in.
Yeah, great stuff. Hey, now, fellas, when is Bangladesh?
Friday night.
Friday night.
Okay, yes, I'll lock it into your diaries. How's the bounce going there, Dylan Cleaver? You're a busy man, I imagine.
Yeah, I am a busy man. Plenty going on with the World Cups. And also, as the correspondent, Dave from Newcastle, mentioned, my latest book, Modern New Zealand Cricket Greats, from Stephen Fleming to Kane Williamson, is out now and on the shelves. So, if you're a fan of cricket or a fan of Christmas presents, get down there.
Good on you,
grab
mate.
a copy.
And don't forget tomorrow night, Australia versus South Africa, 9:30 p.m. What do we want to have happen there? I'll go for the Australians losing, but I don't think they will.
Yeah, well, that would be great if South Africa prevailed, because they crumble against us in the semis, don't they, fellas?
And when are we?
Yeah, they do.
When are we back next?
Next Wednesday, aren't we?
Well, the full show will be back.
Oh, right, you're the, yes.
The specials.
I think we have to take a producer hostage and see whether we're going to do a New Zealand-Bangladesh review on Saturday.
Great stuff. Hey, well, thanks for taking the time to listen to the podcast. Make sure you tune into those specials whenever they're released. Also, the BYC podcast. We'll be back same time, same place next week, fellas?
Sounds great, mate.